Hey everyone, Izzy here. Welcome to another episode of the Valuart podcast. Today we're going to be chatting with Gary Edward Blum in view of his upcoming Valuart Solos here at the Valuart Gallery in Lugano-Paradiso. Gary Edward Blum is a San Francisco-based artist that explores duality and dependent opposition through painting and photography. So tune into this episode as we find out all about his works. Hi, Gary. Thank you so much for being here today on the Valuart podcast. I'm so excited to speak with you in view of your upcoming Valuart Solos. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. It's awesome to be here with you.
Lovely. So to start off, I'd love to know more about you, your artistic journey again. We had time, to speak about it in other Twitter spaces, but, I'd love in particular to know more about what point your interest is in painting and photography also merged.
If I'll go directly to that, but it was, obviously a long process until I got to that point. Most of my career has been in painting, particularly like trompe-l'oeil painting, photorealistic painting, showing and showing in galleries and doing that sort of thing. But around 2016, I'd say, I met a director at a place called Headland Center for the Arts. I'm here in San Francisco, by the way. And I met the director of a place called Headland Center for the Arts, which is just kind of across the Golden Gate Bridge. And there I was you have your own studio space. You're kind of encouraged to experiment and do things that you're not kind of used to, or maybe that you haven't done before in the past. So while I was there, I was getting ready for a painting show at my gallery down south, but I was also doing these photographs. And some of my NFT work you might have seen, like the very first pieces that I did were the Target House pieces. So while I was getting ready for that show, I was also coming into the studio, and I would take pictures of this little house in the middle of this big landscape. It's just a big natural park out there. And I found myself coming into the studio. Okay, I'm doing my paintings, and I've been doing this for a really long time, so I'm obviously familiar with the process of my painting and how it goes. And I was kind of feeling bored with it. And I was looking over at the photography stuff that I was playing around with, just finding myself like, I can't wait to get done with this painting so I can go work on this photography stuff. And it kind of evolved from there. My excitement for the photography was kind of eclipsing what I wanted to do with the painting. So with that, I started to kind of just dive more into what I would do with the photography, how I could kind of incorporate what I love about painting. Because I didn't want to just be like, okay, I'm a photographer now. Like there's so many photographers out there that do amazing work. I didn't want to get too wrapped up in like the technicality of like cameras and like, developing film and all that sort of stuff. So I actually started using just my iPhone. So the very first pictures, everything that I did was just iPhone, because it felt very easy. The quality was good enough for what I was wanting to do with it. And then, kind of taking those iPhone images, printing them out, painting on top of them using, gel mediums, fingerprints, tacking them up on my walls and kind of making them feel like objects that had been around for a while, which kind of echoed what I was doing in my painting. All of my painting work was kind of about the history of a painted page or mark making. So kind of introducing those things together and trying to make it my own. And then from there, I was lucky enough to kind of get picked up by a photography gallery here in San Francisco through studio visits, and kind of just went from there.
So it came naturally, let's say, the flow.
I'm sorry?
So it was like the flow that came naturally of them coming together, you'd say?
Yeah, I'd always been taking photographs. It's something that I'd always done for myself. Like my studio walls would be, covered in pieces that I would mostly take, not with iPhone. I wouldn't print those, of course. Or at that time I wouldn't. I loved like having a 4x5 camera that I would go and take photographs of, which I'm glad to see has become a little bit more popular now. and getting those developed and kind of getting back that roll of film and seeing what you have. And I'd feel lucky if I got like one photograph out of 12. But that was just for myself, because I was very conscious of wanting to kind of keep it like a personal thing. Something that I didn't have to worry about what a gallery thought or anyone would think of these things. It was just for my own inspiration. But as I mentioned before, kind of feeling in this space of not wanting to quit painting, because I love painting. I still love painting, but photography was this kind of new frontier, and I didn't know what the end result was going to be, and that's like super exciting. Once you've been doing something for a while, you kind of know like what the end result's going to be. I would even I'd even like try and like with my paintings, I'd try and trick myself into like doing something shitty and then having to fix it, because as a way of like making something spontaneous and not controlling it so much. And so, that's kind of where it kind of led me to the photography side.
And speaking of the subjects and the inspiration that, you mentioned inspiration, I know also from other conversations that we had that you, especially years ago, you had a journey that really impacted you. And then from there, did that like really influence your practice as well? And is it mostly your travel? You travel still a lot, right? Nowadays.
Yeah, I do travel. We travel quite a bit. I would say as far as if I could kind of pick one thing that inspires me, it would be to travel. And I'm pretty introverted, and I just love being in the studio and just by myself doing my thing. I have no issues at all doing that. And so getting out and traveling kind of gets me out of my comfort zone, and seeing different places and the way people live or the way people interact. And that trip that I think you're referring to was I went to India.
Exactly that.
In 2000. Yeah, this was a while ago now. Yeah,
I couldn't remember the year. I was like,
yeah,
I was thinking it was a while ago, because that's like
it
already
was a while ago.
23 years ago.
Yeah, I can't believe it. It was when I was younger and could just I literally just like quit my design job and was like, I'm going to India. And, at that time, well, first of all, travel in general is something that definitely inspires me. And it's a way of kind of getting perspective on my own work, things, the way that I think, the way that I perceive the world. Of course, photography gets in there. Although in the beginning, I wasn't so focused on taking pictures as like something that would translate into art. It was more like a documentation, because I have a horrible memory. So it started as like, okay, I'm taking pictures of the places I've been so I could remember where the hell I was, what I looked like or whatever. But being in India was one of those kind of pivotal moments in my career as an artist. At that time, I was very interested in Western religion in general, like the iconography that is associated with it, the spirituality aspect of it. And so India was kind of the place that I envisioned, okay, as far as what I'm interested in, and kind of my work revolves around duality a lot, like opposing forces. I thought India as an Eastern religion, how that would affect my work. So I went there for 2 months, just myself, basically started in Mysore in the lower part of India, went all the way up to Kathmandu in Nepal. Had a lot of crazy things happen, saw a lot of things that were, super like amazingly beautiful and also like amazingly painful at the same time. So at that time, taking a lot of notes and doing drawings and sketches, and I had a gallery at that time. So when I came back, I did this whole series of work that was kind of based on the travels to India and the iconography that I saw at that time, and really kind of cemented my idea of things being like meditative and Buddhism and spirituality and that quietness. as something that I wanted to kind of continue in my work, and it's still there today for sure.
For sure. In fact, I also really love, also one of your most recent pieces for Fake Whale. I remember, I looked at also the description and I was like, wow, like also you're really into philosophy. Like from there, I really understood also your connection with philosophy. And so it all started back like during that travel, right? And then
yeah, I would say that was there's certain points that I think I feel like in maybe everyone's life, but definitely in like an artist's career, in my career for sure, like pivotal moments that kind of just send you in different directions, and that was one of them. The philosophy and writings, to be completely honest, I'm not the biggest reader of philosophical works, and
I would have said you were like,
well,
I had this like vibe.
well, I enjoy those things. Don't get me wrong. And there's certain things like the Bertrand Russell piece, I think is what or quotes that you are referring to.
Yes.
There's certain things that really stick with me. And truth be told, my memory is horrible. Like I mentioned that earlier. So I have a hard time like kind of keeping all those things in my head. Like my studio's filled with like just stuff on the wall so I can remember certain things. But there are certain things that I'll read that I will write down and will kind of hit me in a certain way, and that one is definitely one of them. Kind of this idea of always and everywhere is one of the things that he was writing about, and it just kind of resonates with me as like an artist. You're always looking, you're always seeing, you're always taking things in, and his mysticism and logic book in particular, I like that as well, because there's this duality aspect of it. Mysticism, the spirituality, and logic, something that's like a concrete idea. You'll see that in my work as well. And that really resonated with me.
I love it. And speaking of, works, with your upcoming Valuart Solos, what would this be the theme that will be guiding the solos? Which pieces can we see in your Valuart Solos?
I'm still not 100% sure what I want to include. I definitely will have some kind of work in progress, but I want to try and do something that has a certain flow to it, certain thread that you can see, but also there's kind of 3 different narratives that I've done with my NFT work since I started doing it a couple of years ago now. Can you believe it? So there's the photography work with like interventions. There's the color block pieces, and then I have some of the newer pastoral work that I might include as well, and see how that goes together. And then I want to do one new piece to kind of celebrate having the show for sure.
Looking forward to that. And will it be if one of your most recent travels, or do you ever find yourself going back often to even your like really, I would say, travels from the past, like from India?
I might. It really just depends. I don't ever, when I go out and I'm taking pictures, I never set out to like, I am going to take photographs.
Yeah. It just happens.
Even when I'm traveling, like we went to Japan last year. I briefly looked through those images, but I haven't actually even really sat down and looked through all of that stuff. Like I want to give it some time. So when I look at it again, it just feels fresh. It feels like I'm seeing them for the first time. So a lot of the process that I have for making work is, I might have images on my phone. I might have them on my computer. I might have them stuck on my wall somewhere. And one day I'll look at it and I'll just feel like, wow, that piece is striking to me. Or, drag one off of my, hard drive somewhere and start playing around with it. generally it's not something that's brand new. It's generally something that I've just kind of taken in the past. I mean, it could be something new, of course, but I never will just go out, take a picture, and like, okay, I must use this now.
Yeah.
It's more of a what I kind of take a double take, and
Yeah.
well, that piece looks cool. Like, what can I do?
So the composition, the composition, it's not that you have it right in the moment. It always comes afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this long enough now that like I will cut my photographs into thirds. It just, if you were to layer like my images like 100 on top of each other, you'll see that things are generally centered, and then like the horizon's down here 1/3, the sky is 2/3. They will all just kind of naturally end up that way. And to my point earlier, sometimes I've started to try and like just get out of my comfort zone and literally just kind of look somewhere and just take a picture, so it feels a little bit more spontaneous than just like how I would normally line up an image. Although I end up doing it anyway. I'm so
Eradicated.
And like controlling with my work that even in the stuff, if you look at the works that I've done so far with NFTs, and they all end up being very balanced. But I try and make them look as organic as possible. But I could tell you like why every little piece of dust is there, or why a paint mark is there. It all makes a general composition. I'll start with a photograph, and maybe that's the centerpiece. Then I start playing with the other parts of it to kind of balance out the composition. And but everything that I put in each piece it really does have a purpose, and is sometimes agonized over for a long time, maybe just thrown away because it just doesn't then eventually work out. So the compositions generally come in a way of just kind of moving things around, usually in Photoshop, until I kind of get something that I want.
And when did it come? When did you first get introduced to the NFT realm?
I guess it's probably been around 2 years now. It was actually pretty funny. I was never on Twitter before, so I wasn't in that world at all, but I was on Instagram. So I would post a lot of stuff on Instagram. That was actually things that I've done since in the NFT world, where I would just be kind of posting these kind of digital sketches and compilations of things. And one day I was sitting in a parking lot listening to a sports radio station, and they were talking about NFTs. Like you could get Michael Jordan's, famous dunk, and you could own this thing. And I was like, what the hell is that? Why would anyone want that? That seems kind of weird. But okay. So I went home and I was like kind of looking into it, and I found Nifty Gateway. And I'm looking through Nifty Gateway, and I found POC, and I was like, as soon as I saw POC, I was like, because of my aesthetic, I was like, I'm in. I don't know what this is, but this is really cool. So I started looking around a little bit more, and Nate Hill popped into my mind. And I was like, because I knew Nate from Instagram. And so I get on Instagram and I DM Nate, and I'm like, hey, Nate, do you know about NFTs? And I think your work would be really cool in NFTs. And he wrote me back. He's like, dude, I'm on Nifty Gateway. I had no idea. Yeah, he was already on it. And I had no idea. I didn't realize that, Nate's like OG, on Nifty.
Yeah.
And so he's the one that got me into it. He's been, I would say, my biggest mentor so far, in the space, and starting with it, and my panics, and like, how does this stuff work? And Hikat Nunk was the one that he kind of got me started with, which I missed.
Amazing. So you got Hikat Nunk when it was like the core moment, or?
Yeah. Well, I kind of came in right at like probably like the peak. I wasn't there when it was like really unknown.
Like,
But I definitely got in before it I think
before it was in
before.
November. When was it? Yes, November. Actually, it was the day of my birthday when went down the 11th
Yeah,
of November, and
yeah. I
yeah,
remember when he said,
2020,
"Oh, because
2021. Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking like the stuff that I saw was like nifty. I think Maker's Place was at that time something that he kind of mentioned, maybe Foundation. But he's like, I think you should really try Hic Nunc because it's really artist driven and very supportive. And I was like, that sounds cool because that's nothing I've ever experienced in my art career. Is like, you know, artists really supporting, not that they're vicious or anything, but like, the idea that you could connect with other artists and buy other artists' work. And I just thought it was awesome. But when I went to the site for the first time, I was like, oh my God, what is this? Like dark web. you
So it
know?
was kind of like overwhelming in
Yeah,
the
it was,
beginning.
yeah. It went from like Nifty Gateway, where you can use a credit
Yeah.
card, to like, what is Tezos? Like,
Completely.
how
Yes.
the hell do I even get this? And what am I getting? And all the stuff that you think when you first get into it, and you try to explain to anybody, from there. But then, of course, I just totally fell in love with it. And when it kind of started to crumble, I was just like so bummed. I was like, I just love the interface. I just love the whole vibe of it. I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And that's kind of when Object took over, or not took over, but kind of became kind of the hub
Hmm.
of general hub for most people, I would say. But now I love that too. So
Yay.
yeah.
Awesome. So speaking of challenges, if you have to recall in your artistic career any, big challenges that you had, any creative blocks, which ones would you recall and how did you go above them,
Yeah, I don't have them so much anymore. Kind of when I was younger, for sure, when I started, I come from a working class family, so it was always hard for me. Like if I wasn't like creating something, I felt like I wasn't working. Like I'm not doing anything
Mhm.
if I'm not like, and that kind of, I had to learn how to move myself away from that. And I actually now, if anyone were to tell me I'm in a creative block or something, I actually see that more as like a positive thing. It's not so much a negative thing. I look at it as like your brain's trying to like guide you in a different direction, or maybe opening you up to a new idea. Just because you're not like physically creating something doesn't mean you're not working. I mean, if you're going to be
Mhm.
an artist, it's your entire life. It's not just like this time you spent in front of a canvas or in front of the computer. You just have to be open to letting that kind of like wash over you. You
Mhm.
can, a lot of times, if I'm not feeling particularly motivated today, I'll go for a walk, bring my camera, I'll go to the museum, I'll go to a cafe, read a book, look at magazines. I'll even just like sit in my studio and just, be surrounded by what I've done, surrounded by my books, and just kind of be okay with that. I think it's really like one of those important things to realize that it's okay not to, just because you're quote unquote stuck. Um,
Mhm.
I had this one of the things when I think about it was I got my master's in art at Berkeley, and I had never really, when I got to Berkeley, I'd been kind of painting before that, but I wanted to get a master's. I thought I might want to teach at the university level, so you have to have a master's. Um, and I never really, before that point, got into like the history of art, even though I went to school for it. I mean, I took some classes, but it was like at 8 a.m. in the morning, you're like a freshman in college, like,
Yeah.
you're not present during all that sort of stuff. And I wasn't ready for it. But when I was older and getting my master's, I really was like, okay, I'm going to start, looking into abstract expressionists. And at that point, like I was doing realism, but that wasn't what I was actually. Realism is kind of like it's a tool. You have to learn how to do it. You can be good at it, but it's really something. I look at it as a tool. the abstract expressionists and those types of artists, I was like in awe of, because I was very controlling and could paint like little pieces of dust, but how do you become free? So I'm in my studio and I'm thinking about all these artists and art history, and I got totally locked up. I was like, I couldn't make a mark on the canvas without thinking like, well, that's de Kooning, well, that's Cy Twombly, all these,
Yeah.
or, all these people that were like just in my head. And I just locked up. And the way I got out of it was I decided to basically, had gone on a trip and I was taking pictures of, this sounds kind of morbid, but they're really kind of beautiful. The roadside, if you drive along, roads out somewhere, there might have been an accident. Someone will put like flowers by the side of the road.
Oh, yes.
Or a cross or flowers, and some of them are just beautiful. So I did this whole series. I was taking pictures of them. I felt a little guilty taking pictures. Like I would never take any pictures if there was someone's name was on it. I wouldn't take that picture. I would only do it if it was like flowers, or a cross and flowers. So I started to literally like, okay, I'm so locked up. I would like go to my studio at night. I'd go get some super cheap wine, start drinking some wine. And then I started painting these flowers literally on my floor of my studio. Like I would just put paint on the ground, mix them up. I would get a huge canvas and I would throw the canvas on top of it, get it wet, fold it up, stomp on it, use a broom to push paint around on it until I got something that would represent like the form of the flowers. And I used some photographic, like historical stuff, like the way that like some older photographs would be arched on the top, the grids that I was really into with my paintings, kind of mix those things in there. Like, but instead of like drawing a grid, I would fold the canvas up, and it was an amazing experience. I got some really beautiful pieces out of it, something that I only did for a very short amount of time. But it was like that experimenting way, using experimentation and not feeling like being blocked is something that's a negative, but getting to a place where I could try something different. And that eventually led to a whole different series of work that included not only my trompe-l'oeil pieces, like the center trompe-l'oeil piece, like a piece of paper looks like it's taped to the canvas, but it's all paint. I started using, like, I would paint on the walls to kind of mix my paints, and then, I started putting all those marks on the bottom of the canvas. So you started to see the realism and abstraction in the same piece. So they started to speak to each other. And I just loved having, and I still do, like the idea of duality and dependent kind of opposition in the same space. So that was my long-winded answer of
No, that's amazing,
creative block.
Where did I see this series? Because I'd love to see it.
I think I've posted a few on Twitter, but oh wait, you mean the flower ones or my
the one with the flowers? Yeah.
Maybe I'll post a few. I have some around. I mean, they're all
I'd
sold,
love to see them.
But I do have some. I luckily took some pictures of them. I wish I never sold them. My mom does have one of them, a really big one. I mean, they were like 70 by 70. Really, really big pieces. There was one I wish I never sold. It was so cool. I wish I would have kept it.
But that would be amazing to retake now and maybe like meld it with your your new mediums.
Well, that's kind of, I mean, not to the extent that of that those flower pieces in particular, but all of the work that they do, like even, I don't know if you can see it.
I was going to ask you, also about that, because we were talking about painting on walls and everything. So I didn't spot that blue mark over there.
Yes, I think I actually did. I think I used that in a piece somewhere. But I do. To me, it's very important. Not everything, but with NFTs and Web3 work, it's still very important for me to kind of mix. Like I want to be hands-on. I want to make something. All the photographs that you see in my work, I've taken, printed out on transparency sheets, and like just laid them in my studio, get them dirty, mark them up, give them some sense of history, paint on them. Then I'll scan them in, and then I might add something like I'll take a picture of that, and then maybe layer that on top somehow to kind of give it that sense of it's both digital and a physical piece, which I know is something that a lot of people are starting to work with or have been working with. But to me, that's very important to kind of still keep the sense of the artist's hand being in the work in a digital piece.
Absolutely. And because I wanted to ask you something. I forgot in the meantime. Oh
Okay,
man.
I've forgotten all sorts of stuff too.
You see, you said that you have a bad memory. I have like the worst memory because I
Well,
have to
there's
do
one thing
mine
that
and then it's like
I did want to mention, speaking of creative blocks and challenges and stuff. A friend of mine who is a writer, I was talking to her one time. I was in her studio and I looked up on her wall, and she had this list. I was like, "What is this list?" And she's like, "Well, whenever I feel stuck, I read this list, and it's actually I have it right there. I still keep it on my wall."
amazing. And what's written on it?
And it's a graphic designer named Bruce Mau, M-A-U, and it's called the Incomplete Manifesto for Growth. And it's all these little quotes or things that he's talked about that kind of are good for, definitely for younger artists. But I still will look at it to this day, and if I'm just want to get some kind of inspiration or think about something different, I would definitely recommend anyone, if they're still listening right now, to check out Bruce Mau and Incomplete Manifesto for Growth. It's very cool.
I know, I'll check it out. And I see you also have like other notes though. Right?
Those are late night notes that I don't want to forget. If I think of something at night and I'm in here, I like to write, either write on the wall or scribble in my notebook. My studio is in my house. I always have been a live work kind of person. I've had studios elsewhere out of the home, but my entire career is basically is based on the live work philosophy. I am definitely an artist that likes to be surrounded by what you're doing. Get up in the morning, get the dogs and get your coffee and kind of sit down and, be in the space. If you feel like you want to come back late at night and just kind of look at stuff, like I do. I'm like a working class artist. Like I literally I've always been like 9 to 2 is like my work schedule. And then I'll go.
So that's your usual day.
Yeah, I wish I could be like the cool artist that stays up all night, like till 3 in, like toiling away. But I very much have like a work schedule that's get in here at 9 and I kind of get finished like around 2ish. Depends, of course. If something's going on, I'll do longer. But I do like to be in the studio at night and just kind of like put things up and sit with something, and that's when things are a little bit more quiet and thoughts can kind of come into my mind, and write them on the wall so I don't forget.
And what happens when you maybe find yourself, I don't know, it's getting towards that time, like almost 2 p.m. Do you ever have that you're like totally in the flow and you feel like you can't stop?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Usually I kind of
That
get
happens
started.
to me.
Yeah, I'll definitely. There'll be times when it will be more at night. Like it's really at 2 o'clock. I just sort of like need a break. It's just both my natural rhythm, or maybe I have a coffee crash or something. Whatever it is. I just need to get out. But there's definitely times like it'll be in the evening or something where you
just can't stop.
Yeah, just can't stop. Or I was doing graphic design and art for a while, and I found that I only had so much creative energy every day that I even with teaching, like I thought I could. I taught at Berkeley for a year, and while I loved it, it really sapped me. I couldn't. I would do that sort of stuff, and I would come home and just like stare at the wall, like I had no more energy to create, my own work. So most of the time, I've only got like my certain amount of creative energy where I can really produce something. Like earlier in the day, like if I really need to make some like decisions on something, that's probably the time when I do that. At night or something later in the day might be more like manual labor stuff, or I'm like just scanning things, or compiling things. Like, okay, I want to do that tomorrow. So today I'll prepare those files, so tomorrow I can just like get like right into it. But it just depends.
Love it. And speaking of, works, do you have any other projects that you're currently working on that you can maybe spoil to us?
Yes. Nothing super top secret. I did just finish a self-published book that had been taking forever, called Wonder. So that's a printed piece that kind of mixes together my photography, painting, graphic design, kind of all in one book, which is something that I've wanted to do for quite some time. And actually, what I love about Web3, it's really become like this place that I can do all these things that I always imagined doing. But when I got into the real world, like you can't just be a
so have that freedom,
a designer
that we
and
were
an artist,
talking,
and I'm gonna do all these things. It's like, no, there's people that really do this well. You need to focus on something. But now there's like this place where I can kind of bring all those things together.
It sort of makes you like a polymath, I'd say.
And that's some of my favorite artists are the ones that kind of can do a lot of different things, but it still feels like their work. They could do a sculpture, they could do a painting, they could do some whatever drawings, but it still feels like their work, but they're different mediums, which is what I love about this, is being able to kind of have a place where before people would ask me like, oh, so see something on Instagram, like, where are these? How do I get this? And I was like, I don't know. These are just for me to do. Like they're but now all of a sudden this comes along and it's like this place where you can actually show them and, get feedback on them. And, but to that point, of course, I still, I'm super excited to kind of continue in this space and doing things with Valuart. To me, that's like such an amazing opportunity. And I love how you guys are like kind of pushing the envelope and having like this physical space, but also being very aware of the digital world and kind of bringing those two things together, which I just love. So I really appreciate it. I don't know if I said thank you already, but I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Gary.
Having a show. But to answer your question, also, I am going to start doing hopefully a new series soon called Drawings for Sylvia. And they are actually completely digital works that I'm doing on a tablet, drawings based on my photography. I'm not sure how I'm going to present them as far as like editions and stuff, but I'm kind of excited for that to happen maybe in the next few months. We'll see how it goes. And then I'm still very much interested in the physical world. And while I love doing Web3, I do miss galleries. I know that might be controversial to love galleries, but I'm a little bit old school in that.
I get it.
Yeah, I love having openings and shows and making the work and seeing it in the space, and there's a sense of real satisfaction that I get out of that. And since I kind of stopped painting and kind of moved into photography, I won't bore you with my gallery stuff, but I want to kind of get back into that and maybe approach some photography galleries, other photography galleries, and kind of get back into doing gallery work, which is basically what I've done my entire career. But right now I'm obsessed with this stuff, so I'm trying to have a balance.
We're so excited now to have like your your exhibition now, and it's, what is it, in just like 2 weeks from now? So definitely looking forward to that. And hopefully, you know, then you'll come here in Europe as well to come visit us.
I would love that. I don't think I can make an opening, but
Yeah.
I would love to definitely come and visit at some point and see things in person for sure.
Amazing. And before we do close this interview, I'd like to ask you, you know, if you wanted to add anything else to who's listening.
Not particularly. I feel like I've been just nonstop
Right.
talking and talking and talking. I guess one thing that I would say, and I don't know if I'm being too basic with this, but I do feel and I do sense like I'm just thinking about the creative block and younger artists that might be getting into NFTs and you know, as a creative platform, which I think is an amazing thing to be able to do, you know, being able to reach so many people. And, you know, with galleries, it could be almost impossible for people to see your work. But also at the same time with Web3 stuff and the amount of information that you can get, and that you can see all these people having success in certain ways, and it can make you kind of feel a little despondent, like how come I'm not getting, you know, as many clicks or views or sales or things like that. To just focus on your work, and it'll come. Don't get discouraged by what other people are doing or what you're seeing. Just stay your course, stay on your path, and it'll come around. It took me a long time to kind of get to a point now where I feel comfortable doing what I'm doing, and it took a lot of hard work. And if I would have stopped every time that a gallery, you know, dismissed me or didn't want my work, then I would have quit a long, long time ago. So just stay with it.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks, Gary, for also sharing this that's how do you say this suggestion advice. Well, thank you so much for, you know, this interview. Thank you. We can't wait really for your Valuart Solos.
Yeah, I'm excited. Really excited, for sure.
Looking forward.
It's a highlight for sure.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Sorry, today I'm kind of like, I feel bad that I forgot like my question earlier. I'm just like I'm sorry.
Okay. I just feel like I don't know what I'm talking about.
No,
and then I think
it was amazing. You're amazing.
And then I realized, was I doing this the entire time? I hope I was not like spinning in my friggin' chair the entire time. Oh my God.
We'll create a GIF out of it.
Well, really, I really appreciate this. This is really excited to do a show with you guys, and I feel honored to kind of be a part of it. And a lot of, as you know, a lot of the people that you guys are showing and have in there are definitely within the space, like some of my idols and friends, and so it's cool to kind of be a part of it. You included.
Thank you. and let me know, like the quote that you have, like that you mentioned before. I might text you later to ask it because I'm really interested in reading it. I like reading a lot. Like I'm a kind of a
I'm sorry that might have come out the wrong way. I guess I felt like I'm just not someone that's like, okay, here's like I've got 20 philosophy books over here and I'm constantly like reading them. That's not necessarily my style. It's more, I have things around, like, you know, Agnes Martin, if you know who she is, like, you know, she wrote a book of quotes and things, and stuff like that was, you know, I'm very interested in reading, and there are just certain things that kind of stick in my head.
Yeah, sometimes me too. Sometimes it's more like the short quotes and poems that really stick to me more than sometimes I might get.
I honestly wish I was more of a reader. My attention span is not the best when it comes to stuff like that, unfortunately. Maybe I need to like practice more. But
I was think so. I love reading.
Let's go pictures. Where are the pictures at? Where are the pictures?
Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah, I'll send you. I have it somewhere here, so on my computer, I can send it.
Awesome. No, really looking forward to that. That way, when I have my creative blocks, I'll read them. Because sometimes I'm
Yeah,
still
I mean,
like,
I don't know if it's creative block or if it would help you, but
yeah,
the Bruce Mao
yeah,
thing, it's just very cool. Like some of the stuff that he's come up with and thoughts. It's not just about being a creative, having creative block. It's, as you'll see
yeah. It's more like,
when you read it. Yeah, it's just different. It's different thoughts about creativity and
mhm.
experimenting and not being afraid to fail and all that sort of
That's
stuff.
it.
And
That's
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that too. I mean, I think we
Yeah.
all, if you're honest and you're creative, I mean, I could think of times when I was nervous or scared to do something, even things like this, like, doing shows, like I get, oh shit. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I said yes. I've done this a million times, but I still get like nervous. I still get like, oh God, I hope the work looks good. I hope I can I'm going to make a new piece for this. And I still have like, oh God, I have to make a piece. I hope it's good.
Mhm.
Like, even though I've done it, so many times,
Yeah.
you still have that fear of failure. You're not going to,
I
make
guess
something.
that's what, at the end of the day, keeps you alive. So,
Yeah. And
in
it's something
so
yeah, I look at it as more, it's just like a growing experience and hopefully find something new and exciting that you can present.
love it. All right, then. Then I will leave you to your Saturday. I hope you have an amazing
Okay.
Saturday.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate
looking
you.
forward to tuning back in.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Gary.
You
Have an
bet.
amazing
Bye.
day.
Okay, you
Bye.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.